Well, after roughly two years since the closure of Railway Avenue in Minot for flood control projects, it's finally set to open this Friday. The section of the flood wall starts from 3rd Street, passes 13th Street, and sits at the center line of the old railway. The city's utilities director, Jason Sorensen, says having to shift all water sewages to the north has been a massive undertaking. He says people in the area may still see some work continuing with smaller road closures as they move on to the next phases of the project. The city says this phase will help remove more than half of Minot residents from the proposed FEMA floodplain, giving them more protection from future floods.
I'm happy for them to have a new route out of northeast Minot, but then additionally I'm extremely pleased that we have another phase of flood control almost complete.
Now, the work completed in this area involves 2,500 feet of concrete with more than 4,000 feet of roadway improvements. They add that more than 50,000 feet of water distribution and storm sewer piping were removed or replaced. For more on this project, you can find this story on our website.